मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघते गिरिं यत्कृपातमं वन्दे परमानंद माधवम. Oh Swami, please think through me, feel through me, speak through me, act through me, behave through me, conduct through me. Saira. Om Sairam, brothers and sisters. Once again, a beautiful Sunday morning, a warm welcome. As we said, satsang brings us closer spiritually, atmically, so that we can connect with each other, uplift our energy levels with the ones who have progressed well in the sadhana and trying to reach out to the same divine. Today's satsang, basically, we start with same tuning into Bhagwan, because satsang is nothing but when we try to communicate with the Lord, when we establish that broken link, because the transmitter is always there. God is always transmitting his love. The receivers, there is a problem in receiving it. So these sessions, or the bhajan sessions, helps us to tune in well our respective receivers and connect to the divine energy. Very important reminder is, while we are tuning in, we can't keep, when you want to tune a station and you want to listen to the music, we remain in that station. We don't keep changing and the knob and turning in. And that's what exactly the divine name and devotion is. It has to be like a water being dug in the well, a well being dug. The drilling has to happen at the same place. It has to remain so that we get connected, we get water sprouting out, right? It's the same way as this particular image which shows, we have flashed in the past sessions as well, a person getting so close to the final treasure, a person who is doing a sadhana getting so close to God realization, or so close to getting connected to the Bhagavan, that finally, just a few moments before, if he doesn't have steadfastness, he doesn't have perseverance, he gives up just when he's about to reach. So these are important things we have to keep reminding each other, that we have to meditate one form, one name, एक आस्था, एक नाम, एक रूप, एक जप, एक मंत्र, एक ईश्वर, एक सत्य साई. It has to be a complete fidelity, a complete loyalty. And when we do that, when we are able to do that over and over again, it's like you're putting a magnifying glass on the sun rays, and that comes very concentrated, piercing into the papers and burning it out, right? So this session, sadhana, is a study circle, when we try to connect, or any of the form of your satsang, when you connect to the divine, is like putting that glass so that you can attract his grace, like a magnifying glass does the sun rays, and which is able to pierce, burn into our impurities that we have collected in the preceding weeks. So brothers and sisters, once again, moving on with this particular session. Yesterday I had a thought whether we should postpone it, because we had Christmas and the holidays coming. And then the thought came into my mind, if God takes leave as well as we were trying to plan, guess what will happen? And perhaps that's what some of them figured out in Corona times, in the COVID times, when there was mercilessly things going out of control, people dying, as we all became hapless victims and hapless witness to the events around us. With except surrender and prayers, there was nothing, because we thought for that moment God was on leave. The temples were closed, the churches and gurudwaras were shut and locked, the mosque barren. Imagine all these centers whom we had thought of repository of the God and his grace were all closed, seemingly that God has taken leave. And when God takes leave, the creation doesn't exist. So brothers and sisters, when this thought came to me yesterday, out of convenience and not conviction, I think the inner sai, the inner atma, the conscience spoke up. Imagine if God takes leave, what's happened? So I said, well, very well, then we will continue with this satsang. In whatever form we connect, we try to, join the dots. And that's where we session this is. Satsangatve nisangatvam, as Sri Adi Shankaracharya put it. Satsangatve nisangatvam, the whole primary objective is we come together, share the energies. We try to, improve our individual through Vyaktigat and individual sadhana, so that from satsang, from the group of many, we start getting into nisangatvam. That is, we start getting inside. Swami says, no, you're three persons, the one you think you are, the one others think you are, and the one you really are. So we are between the two, the one you think we are and the one others think we are. And nisangatve is when you try to get into the domain, the one you really are, right? Then he goes on to say nisangatve nirmohatvam. So what will happen when you start going within? It will it will set up a sense of detachment, a sense of disillusionment with the world around, because everything you will start looking that these are not permanent. These are temporary. They're not going to give me the lasting happiness that I'm looking for. And when the nirmohatvam, that is a detachment, sense of detachment, the photograph shows when Buddha, who was the king, who had all the options at his disposal to lead a very kingly and a majestic life, he chose to side with the quest he had to find the truth. Why people are dying, why people are sick, why somebody is getting old. These were the questions he wanted to get an answer to when he saw these images as he went around one day in the chariot. And nirmohatvam, that means without a sense of attachment. When he started looking into that quest, the quest became so overpowering in the conscience that every attachment, everything started fading out. And that is nirmohatvam took place. And from nirmohatve, nischal tattvam, when you start getting into that honest query, removing, getting out of your attachment, nischal tattva, it becomes pristine, pure and clear. And when that happens, nischal tattve, jivan mukti, as Bhagwan says, Jivan Mukti is there are a lot of the masters who have realized God, spread the gospel and the word of God for a long, long time, even after they have realized, and that is in the state of Jivan Mukti. And there's a whole gambit and purpose of satsang that we try to connect about, from many to get into one, and then one get into none and reach into that state. So this satsang, hopefully we are able to get some reminders. Who am I? That has been the query, that has been the quest, and the whole gambit of the organization being set up, Bhagwan says, is to rekindle the divinity within. Unless we have done that, I think the entire activities we are doing, I don't think it is futile, but we are still quite a distant away from realizing the truth. Am I the body? Am I the mind? Am I the senses? Am I the intellect? What are we? When we say, Swami says, when you pick up, you say, this is my handkerchief. When you pick up a handkerchief, my and handkerchief are different. Who is this my? And that's where he's trying to provoke by this, who am I? Koham, the cry, the child is born. Who am I? And from there, prior to marriage, Bhagwan says, who was the wife? Right? Prior to child to born, who was the child? Wife, children, friends are like passing clouds, right? It is all attachment that has come on the way. And the whole journey then starts from who am I, koham to soham, I am he, aham brahmasmi. So this is the whole crux of the matter, why a human has been evolved over the last 84 lakh species. We have got this Jantu Nam Narajanma Durlabham. We have come into this phase so that we can go that one notch further, which we have been bestowed with the ability. Let's listen into this Nirvana Shatkam. Adi Shankaracharya beautifully says, who am I? A very, very pertinent reminder to all of us.
रागो न मे लोभमोह मदो नैव मेनैव मात्सर्यभावः न धर्मो न चार्थो न कामो न मोक्षः न पुण्यं न पापं न सौख्यं न दुःखं न मन्त्रो न तीर्थं न वेदः न यज्ञः अहं भोजनं नैव भोज्यं न भोक्ता चिदानन्दरूप शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं न मृत्युर्न शोका न मे जातिभेद पिता नैव मे नैव माता न जन्म न बन्धुर्न मित्रम् गुरुर्नैव शिष्यः चिदानन्दरूपः शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम् अहं निर्विकल्पो निराकाररूपो विभुत्वाच्च सर्वत्र सर्वेन्द्रियाणां न चासङ्गतं नैव मुक्तिर्न मेया चिदानन्दरूपा शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपा शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहं चिदानन्दरूपा शिवोऽहं शिवोऽहम्.
That's what this states. When Swami used to say that I am God and you are also God. The whole Nirvana Shakti come, you see how it comes into the display. So the only difference Swami says is I know I'm God and you don't know that you are God. And how we don't know what are the rust which is collected over the iron. All these sessions help us. Swami's discourses, Radio Sai, Satsai Media Center, whatever we call it, YouTube, various experiences, all these come a part of our Vyaktigat and collective sadhana to remove the rust and dust which is collected so that we can see the image of Satya Sai within us again and become one with him. So God plus desires, what happened? Swami said, I separated myself from myself to love myself. But in the whole game, in the rules of engagement, this ego was something which we brought in. It was not a part of the divine game plan, but eventually when we came into this life, we started collecting this. This is the rust and dust we have collected. And that's how it beautifully the slide shows God plus ego, or these desires which we carry, equates to a human. And when we are able to remove that, human removes the desires or ego, becomes God. So the first one relates to Deha Bhiman and the next one relates to Atma Bhiman. The whole journey is to get from Koham to Soham. That is getting the ego eradicated, right? So that we realize that we are not the human beings who have come down incidentally to have a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings who have planned to come down to have a human experience, right? And while having the human experience, again escalate to divinity while we are in this particular form of the birth by his grace, so that we can start that journey as we earlier shared. Satsangatve Nisangatvam, Nisangatve Nirmohatvam, Nirmohatve Nishal Tattvam, and Nishal Tattve Jivan Mukti. So we can come to that ladder and finally come out of this escape velocity. You know, when you get out in the escape velocity, these satellites, they don't need further fuel. They keep gliding. Okay. Let's look at this organizational structure of the entity called ego or the desire. What are the offshoots? When you look at Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Madh, Moha, Matsarya, all these are vargas that we are seeing, they are reporting to somebody, right? We all have an organization structure in their office reporting to someone. All these factors report to the mind, which is the controller, right? The mind is by which you are regulating the senses, right? And where does the mind report to? The mind is, or these ego or these detachments, they are basically an offshoot of the desires which is collected. And that desire is because of the attachment, and the attachment again is an offshoot or a reflection of the ego, body identification. And that's where you see all these vargas are pulling this individual, the man, who has developed this ego. He has not realized it's not only ego which comes, it's come with the package. And package is Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Madh, Moha, right? So now he's changed, he's completely changed in this birth. He wants to get out of it. And that's why we are all sitting together to come out of this, the whole shackle that we have created. It's like a spider's web, getting a spider trapped himself into the web that it has created. So, and that's very important part of the Christmas where Lord Christ came in. When he came in, he was one of us. Like Buddha came in, he was one of us. He you know, a normal, you know, individual born into a family who had a normal family life. That's how Christ came in when he was born, and he said, "I am the Son of God. I am the messenger of God." Then he came to the next step where he said, "I'm the Son of God," and then finally he said, "Me and my Father are one." So what Christ gave an image. We had beautiful Christmas yesterday, a holy Christmas. I take this moment to wish you all a Sai blessed Christmas yesterday that it was, and also his love and sacrifice that Lord Christ displayed keeps inspiring us to at least get into this part, very important part that we just spoke about, ego. The cross that we see is a big I, right? This is I is the ego, and what Lord Christ said, displayed by the crucifixion is the cancelling of the I. Okay, this is the whole process. Trust me, when this is annihilated, that means that between you and Swami says spiritual mathematics is like you stand in front of the mirror, you are one person, the mirror is one, and the image is one, right? So Swami says in spiritual mathematics, in normal mathematics, when you do 3 minus 1 is equal to 2. When in spiritual mathematics, 3 minus 1 is equal to 1. How he says that is you, mirror, and the reflection. These are three. The moment you remove the mirror, which is Maya, which is the world, which is the whole reflection where the game is going on, the I, you are left alone. And that you is the Paramatma. When the Jivatma becomes the Paramatma. And that's what Christ came to display. When he crucified himself in the cross, it was basically the body identification, the big I that he showed us and removed. And that's where he attained. He said, "Me and my Father are one." Right? And I was trying to understand this word Christ, which I didn't earlier. So in this sense, Christ, when you break this word, it's cry and Ishta. Ishta is Ishta Devata, you know, your God that you perceive. So when you cry for Ishta, you become a Christ. That means when you pine for Ishta, when you pine deeply for God, you become one with him. And that crying for Ishta Devata, cry for Ishta becomes Christ. And that's where Lord Christ became what he became, so that the whole world is trying to emulate on his footprints. Swami said, some have come to me and asked very question. We have been engaged in this sadhana, Swami, for years. By now, we have written the name lakhs and lakhs of times. We have repeated ceaselessly for many years, but we have not succeeded. Why have we not reached the goal, Swami? And Bhagwan says, look at this. Have you yearned, have you pined, have you wept for the Lord? Have you shed tears of contrition, tears of exultation? That means joy, ananda, while repeating his name. That means the very name which would give us ecstasy, as it gave to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as it gave to Ma Kali's name, gave to Sri Ramakrishna Paramahansa, who used to just get totally ecstatic about it. Swami says, have you done that? You might have wept. We all might have wept, but for whom and what reason? Who knows the impulses that swept you into the sadness? Your yearning must be so warm for the Lord that it is called tapas, or it becomes the penance. Brothers and sisters, this is important for us to understand. When you cry for the Lord also cries for us. He tries to reach out spontaneously, he will respond. And that is something which we must carry in this message of Christmas, is pining for the Lord, right? Cutting the ego that binds us, the big I which binds us. These are messages for what Lord Christ stood. And then Bhagwan goes on to say, for on the eve of Christmas, one of the Christmas messages, he says, people talk of sacrifice of Christ by crucifixion, but he was surrounded and bound and crowned by the crowd who captured him with a crown of thorns and later nailed to the cross. A person bound and beaten by police cannot say he sacrificed anything, correct? And he is not a free man. Let's pay attention, Swami says, to the sacrifice that Jesus made while free and out of his own free will. When Christ was on cross, ill feeling towards all the men who tortured him troubled him. Suddenly he heard a voice. Swami says, suddenly he heard a voice. All life is one, my dear son, be alike to everyone. And then he says, when Lord Christ was on the cross, he says, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. Imagine the height of forgiveness, height of compassion, height of love Christ had, even the ones who nailed him on this cross, painlessly, ruthlessly. He said, forgive them, for they don't know what they have done. And that is one thing which we have to take from the lesson and life of Christ: forgiveness, cancellation of ego, removing the body attachment and stuff and all. And then Swami goes on to say that, yes, in different phases, I'm messenger of God, I'm son of God. And finally, Christ, when he realizes the Lord, he says, I and my Father are one. And Bhagwan, next chapter, in the Satsang speaks, volume 11, this is so beautiful. Again, Bhagwan says, then Christ says to all his disciples, he who has sent me will come again. And then he points out to a lamb and says, Baba. The lamb, how the lamb voices, it is by the sound Baba, right? So Swami says the Lord Christ was pointing out and says that will be the voice. I mean, that will be the name he was trying to say, and his name will be truth. Christ declared Satya means truth. He will wear the robe of red, a blood red robe. He will be shot with a crown. He who made me will come again. Then the person who sent the super soul or the super consciousness which sent me will come again. Right? So these are beautiful things that Christ has done, by sacrificing himself. He has given the world indelible, legacy of love, forgiveness, cutting the ego that binds us, and moving on into the spiritual path. Next, something which struck me was, while this morning I got up at 6, thinking about happiness. We all are working and moving towards 2022, to receive 22, as if we are going with all the band, baja and barat to welcome this particular day. Something is going to come. Nothing is going to come. It's all within us. It's a date of calendar which changes. A paper rolls over and we think we are happy. We all say Happy New Year, right? 364 days, we don't even bother what happiness means. We don't bother, we remain in stress. And that one day, one moment, we think by saying Happy New Year, we have done everything so happily or so well. That's not the fact. So happiness was something which came to my mind. And let's hear this out, then we move on a little bit more on this journey.
Prema Swarupulare. Happy, 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 be happy. Happy, happy, make others happy. All will be happy, God will be happy.
साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात् साईश्वराय विद्महे सत्यदेवाय धीमहि तन्नः सर्वः प्रचोदयात्
Okay. Now, whatever we do in life, whether it is studies, whether it is, getting into a job, whether it is being a mother, everything, every small to bigger aspect that we do, we have that factor that we should be happy doing it and we should be ending up in happiness, right? Even though a mother knows that she has to go through 9 months and then the labor pain, one of the most intensive pains that, is known, but still she knows in the end of that tunnel, there is happiness waiting. A new child is going to be born and she'll be mothering that child, right? So happiness is a crux of every activity that we try to do. We don't want, I'm sure we all agree that we don't do anything in life to be sad. Does any one of us do that? But we end up being sad. Why? Because we got misdirected towards what happiness actually is and what is a permanent happiness. What is the difference between a happiness and bliss, right? So there are different ways we look at it. Something which is very objective, which is gross, we can see, like earth, water, fire, sky, which is very objective, and certain things which is subjective. This is how we look at things, correct? Perceive, how we perceive it. So these are two different ways how we are going to touch upon this topic a little bit. How we wish to see it, remember, defines happiness, the level of happiness. We may not be rich. There's very nice, somebody said, I think Guru Gopal Das, he said, there are some people who are so rich, who are so poor, so absolutely poor, that the only thing they have is money. Now, put this across to people who don't have money. For them, happiness means money. Put this across to people who are big businessmen, those who have earned a lot of money. Even recently, I think we had one of the cases in UK, in Hong Kong, one of the British, business tycoon who committed suicide. So now they have all the money in the world, but why did they commit suicide? Because of this, how we are looking into it. A pauper or beggar can be as happy as is content. When in this winter season, Swami gives the opportunity when I can go out and see some of them who require blankets or food. And actually, I can tell you that some of them who have a blanket, I see that. They say, I don't need it, I have one. Look at this honesty. They are in the poorest of poor condition, but we meet some of them who just deny taking it because they have one. Now, how they are looking at it defines the happiness. And this is what I have learned from, even picked up from these guys whom I interact, generally trying to go every alternate day in the night and, move around in the winters and see who needs blanket, who doesn't need. So how we look at things is a very, very important part of defining the happiness. And remember, when the end result is happiness, doesn't mean in between the journey will not have grief, pain, challenges. It will have. An athlete who starts training goes through a lot of challenges, a lot of physical discomfort. But in the end, he knows he is reaching out for happiness, not for these grief and trouble and stress and, training and all that. He meets up in the way to the happiness, right? So how we look at things defines it. Now, there is a Shiva Sai medical store in Puttaparthi, and there's a famous tea stall opposite to the Shiva Sai, right? Now, the Shiva Sai medical store guy distributes a lot of medicines, right? Body ache, paracetamol, or name it. You go there, you have a headache, take a medicine. This guy distributes tea. Now, what happens is, sometime you can think this guy, the medicine guy, has a headache. Now, what he ends up doing when he has a headache, he's looking for a cup of tea. Whereas this man who has a headache, who's selling a tea, when he has a headache, obviously the tea is not going to satisfy him. He looks for medicine. Now look at that. Both of them have the answers within them and they both reach out to each other. So what is happening is the perception of not knowing what has God has already given us decides how happy or unhappy we are. And that is where self-contentment comes in, right? So it's very important, happiness, to realize it is all within us. We have it. It's like the musk in the deer. The khushbu, the fragrance is there, but it keeps roaming around in the jungle. And that's exactly what these photographs define. There is a sailor who is in the boat, who is reaching out, he needs help, or when he looks into the island, he's so happy. Whereas the guy in the island, he wants to get out and sail into the boat to be happy. So how do you define who is more happier? The guy in the boat who's trying to reach the island, or the guy in the island who's trying to reach out to the boat? And both of them are right in a way. Right? So happiness is a sense of perception, how we perceive it, how we look into it. Yeah. So this is something which was picked up from Swami's discourse, I think, in 1953 when he gave a discourse, and so it was pictorially put up in one of the, I think, videos or Radio Sai, where I took some of these snippets just to understand each other and a point that it's all relative. Moving on, happiness is in money, it's in achieving fame. Some of them believe so, right? That when we go out, when we chill out in the party, when we get into the maya, into the attachment, meeting your son, meeting your friends, it gives a lot of happiness. But remember, when it comes with a package, the one which gives you a lot of happiness is bound to give you also a challenge or a sorrow or a trouble. Buy a car, you feel very happy about it. The car gets punctured on the highway, it starts giving you a problem. So it doesn't come with a pure pristine package that the no terms conditions apply. No, the TC applies when you buy these materialistic things. They carry the value of temporary happiness. Whatever one perceives as happiness and pursues, one gets it. Depending on the intensity of effort, you get the happiness, but it's momentary. And that momentary part is prayers. Whereas if we are looking into the permanent happiness part or the bliss part of it, it is Shreyas, right? So there was once a crow. The crow thought that, I'm the only one with a black color, and thought, let me go around and see why I've been bestowed with this black color. And it was not very happy. It was always keep complaining, as we all do, why I did this, why I have only this, and my friends have got a Porsche, or somebody who has got a Honda City is looking at somebody who has got a, Fortuner and things like that. So this crow was having a black color and thought of my color being ugly. So went and flew into a swan, who was so white and nice. And he felt that if I was a swan, I would be white colored and be happy, so happy about it. But then when he asked the swan says, well, you think so, I'm happy. What about the parrot? The parrot has got so beautiful colors. I'm not the one who's beautiful and happy. So the parrot must be more happy because multicolors are there, red, green, blue, beak and all that. I'm sure the parrot is happy. So the crow thought, oh, I met the wrong guy. Let's go and talk to the parrot. The crow goes to the parrot, right? And then he's 2-3 colors, quite happy. So, hey guy, what are you doing? You must be a very happy bird and person. And the parrot says, yes, I was. This green color was given to me by God. And, a tinge of red and all. But I think, the peacock is so blessed. The peacock is so blessed. So beautiful colors are all around the peacock. Now the crow is finding that even swan, who was a white color, is not happy. The parrot is not happy because parrot is looking at peacock. And peacock says, yeah, that is fine. When I spread my wings, people in the world love to come and see me. But the problem is they keep me in the zoo, and that restricts me. To move around. So he saw even the peacock is not very happy. So what is then true happiness? What is true happiness that defines that it can be lasting? It can have a long-term impact. So looking at this, the crow knew that the happiness is something which is very subjective and not very objective. So what is happiness? Why it remains elusive, brothers and sisters? We need to understand, and let me draw your attention. Nowadays, I think in 2013 it started. Bhutan was a country which initiated gross index of happiness or gross national happiness index, something they brought up into UN, a resolution. And from that year onwards, UN survey team organization has been trying to map the happiness of the countries in the world. They come out with a happiness report, world happiness report, year on year, and they grade 1 to 150, somewhere the countries, or maybe whatever number of countries they have. Usually you'll find Finland, Denmark, Netherlands and Norway, and all these are in the top 5 or top 10 countries which are in the happy index. Now, what is the criteria is difficult to define, but somewhere I was trying to note down the criteria. So it's pertinent to our discussion today. And they have GDP, which is naturally they should be there. They have how much social support is there, where government or society comes out for each other. Life expectancy, freedom to make choices. That is, if I'm a youth, I can do what I like. So freedom to make choices. Remember, this defines their happiness index of the survey. Generosity and the level of corruption. So these are something where we see how the world perceives happiness, and that's how they define who is most happiest in the world. In 200 countries somewhere, I don't know, I've not seen individually what countries stand for, but you can say Uruguay is highest in South America, and then we have North America, Canada, and all that. Bhagwan says modern life, or what you call modernity, which is giving happiness as we think so, is no latest style of living. Modernity lies in putting ceiling on desires. And that is where he comes in with this and says ceiling on desires. That means when you have a ceiling, when you have a control, when you have check on your senses, that will define your happiness, not the affluence is going to define the happiness. All right. So this is an important topic where the whole world is mapping it out. And generally the GDP is not necessarily the definition of how happy a country has been. And Bhagwan puts it, when we start inculcating the human values, the more and more of the human values in a human being, the level of happiness will start going up. Why? Because it is more sustainable, it's going to be more lasting. And that is why the Educare program, the Bal Vikas program, has got all the ingredients to instill, imbibe, encourage, and force, interest, and bring out the human values in the child so that they become better citizens of tomorrow. So it's an important part for us to understand human values are connected directly to the happiness that we are seeking outside, right? Ceiling on desires, we have to, again, as Bhagwan says, is an important part for us to understand between happiness and, it's like MAD syndrome we talk about, momentary attraction distraction syndrome, MAD syndrome. So when you go to a mall, you see something, you just want to buy it. You don't need it, but you want to buy it. So this is called MOD, and suddenly you come back, then somebody releases and some friends say, okay, let's go and see it. It's called MAD syndrome. So ceiling on desire programs helps us to differentiate between the need and the want. It's an important aspect which Bhagwan has brought us. We have to be very mindful of what we need and what we want, right? And once we are able to come to that, we'll have the inner satisfaction. Even if, let's say we are having a chocolate, right? You give a child a bunch of chocolates and they start eating one by one, as soon as possible. Why? Because they're quite happy about it. But the same chocolate you keep in your mouth and you move it around and you slowly take it, that is called ceiling and completeness of desires. When you enjoy one part of the desire that you have taken and not hog and greed about it, right? So it's an important part of index of happiness that we should exercise ceiling on desires to reach. And Bhagwan has put 4 cardinal principles in ceiling on desires. Don't waste food, don't waste time, don't waste money, and don't waste energy. And there are again very, very big elaborations. We'll have a separate section and a session completely altogether on ceiling on desires. We'll elaborate further on this. Moving on. Taittiriya Upanishad says, Anando Brahmeti Vidyanata Anande Kalvi Mani Bhutani Jayanti Anandena Jatani Jivanti Anandam Prayanti Abhishama Vishanti. What does it mean? Basically, it's true happiness or ananda comes only when we become one with God. That is, you immerse so deeply into the satsang or Bhagwan's bhajans, when you connect that union with God is only the lasting and the true happiness. The rest all is like flirting with happiness, fleeting moments of happiness, and they are not ananda. There is a word in Hindi, khushi, and there's a word in ananda. That is happiness. Khushi is happiness. Ananda is bliss. So what we are looking at, something which is going to last and you're not going to buy things from the market which is not going to last, right? You always look for warranty, how long it's going to last. Similar thing is with the happiness. It's an investment. If you want to really be ananda, that is blissful, not temporary, then that is God. When you connect to the super soul, when you connect to Bhagwan, when that communion happens, happiness is an offshoot of that, right? So it's an important part for us to understand how happiness and bliss has to be differentiated. And if you want to really to be happy, longer and longer time, we have to connect to the God. It's journey. It's not a destination. Happiness is a big journey, right? It's never a destination, right? And bliss should be the destination. So when we are doing a thing, we should be happy doing it. And finally, the ananda that we get after completion of that job, which even 10 years later, when you remember, you'll feel so happy about it. And that is bliss. Why? Because it has got everlasting value. So our focus should be how we can be more blissful. It is not some pill that a doctor can prescribe you take morning, evening, and afternoon that can be there. You know, it is a choice we take. And how beautifully Bhagwan coins it. He says, causeless happiness is bliss. That means Ananda is something, it's a state of being, right? It's a state of being and joy. No mind what is the turbulence happening around. The moment you know the God is within us, He's with us, you will never be fearful. You will be completely at peace. And that is bliss. Causeless happiness is bliss. So beautifully put on by Swami. When you feel happy, ask yourself, why am I happy? If you find a reason, then it is, you see, look at this beautiful statement what Bhagwan is telling. If you find a reason, I'm happy because I got a car, then that is not permanent happiness. If you find a reason that my son got promoted, that is not a permanent happiness. If there is no reason and you still feel blissful and nice, that is bliss. That is permanent. So beautifully Bhagwan has said, only Satyachit and Ananda can, only Satyachit means the awareness of the changeless truth. Satyachit, when you become aware of this entity, when you became aware and try to connect to God, that is the only thing which is going to give Ananda. So such Chit results into Ananda. Being awareness in bliss always is happiness, which is union with God. So brothers and sisters, he further goes on to say, don't worry, be happy. When Dr. Hislop, he asked Swami, you say that it's man's duty to be happy. Baba said, happiness is one of the major gateways to divinity. Mark these words, brothers and sisters. Happiness is one of the major gateways, all that we are talking about, you know, to Koham to Soham, realize divinity within everything. He says it's a major gateway. To be unhappy is a serious act of sacrilege. It's a barrier to God realizations. So when we look into this statement, such a powerful statement, let's reflect within and let's see that the moments of unhappiness is completely routing our entire sadhana in the progress. Because Swami says it's a big barrier to God realization. And you can't be, because God is Ananda Swarupa, correct? And by being in stress, by being in pain, by being in trouble and all these things of the world that you are carrying in your head, you just can't connect to him, right? Because it's a big barrier. So we got to offload that and move on to this particular journey. I think we'll continue with this part in the next session with a little bit of discussions more. Yeah, because this is something which is going to bring out a lot of soul searching. Let's dedicate this next 2 weeks to think about happiness. How can we be more happy and have a good discussion and then see what Swami eventually says about happiness. All right. With that, I think I'll end up today from my side. I'll get Brother Shastri, request him to come over and share one of the 108 names Mahatma.
Sairam, brothers and sisters, I think wonderful session. I think the ultimate thing that all of us look for is the happiness, whether we have, don't have nots and haves. So whatever the situation and the scenario that we are blessed with. So so today's Swami's 108 name is Om Sri Sai Loka Bandhavaya Namaha. He is the one, actually, you know, the actual true translation of this is that he's a kith and kin of everyone in the world, in the universe. But I think because he's, as we know, that he's omnipresent, omnipotent, you know, so many titles that we already have for the divine. But then when he had taken the human form and he had come, he always had shown the glimpses, that kind of closeness, being the, you know, like a family member. So I think whoever had interaction physically with Swami has always felt it, or he had shown a kind of an incident to the people. For example, if you go back into the, you know, Mahabharata times, so Lord Krishna was like holding even the slippers of Draupadi, and he was a charioteer for Arjuna. And for the, you know, Lord of the universe, there was no such need for him to do those things. But still, you know, he does show it in his own inimitable way to show that, yes, he's a part and parcel of our, you know, family. as it is. Like, so that is where the Loka Bandhava. For example, whenever somebody is in difficulty, I'll just share one example is this. Once when Prashanti Mandir was not there, and there were a couple, who came up with their child, and the child had a lot of problem with the motions, the dysentery and stomach ache and all that. But after they came to Parthi, again they had some urgent work and they had to leave the boy there in Parthi under Swami's care and go back to their village. So they told Swami, would you like to please take care of my child and we'll just come in a day or two. But Swami did not react or give any medicine or any kind of solution until when they were there with the child and the parents were there. Swami said, I will take care, don't worry, you just go and come back. So this boy, all of a sudden one night, he just gets up and he says that, Swami, I need to go to the toilet. So at those days, there were no toilets there in Puttaparthi. The Prashanti Mandir was not built. And Swami, told that boy that you don't have anything, keep quiet and you just sit there. And the boy just, Swami started staring at him and looked at him for almost an hour, I believe. And ultimately the boy went into sleep. No motion, nothing, no stomach ache, all disappeared. So Loka Bandhavaya means he's just, he's as friendly as, and also even small things that Swami does, it appears as if whatever the kind of Maya that he comes with to show he's not having that power or anything like that, but he does those small things to make sure that he is one with the people that are around with him. And even I think, brother, you have shared many times Lord Krishna, washing the clothes of Kabir,
Yes.
so many things that have happened. Even, for example, Gopanna, Ramdas, it's a living story that's a recorded incident in Golconda Fort. When he was imprisoned there, he appears to Tanisha, Lord Rama, and then pays the money that he is due or he has been accused of, and then asks the Tanisha to release him. So all the Loka Bandhavaya means Loka Bandhava. He is absolutely there with us, for us, forever.
Yeah.
So
Good. Thanks, brother. And I'm reminded, I went to Prashant to see him in Manipal. There's a temple, Krishna temple in Udupi. And where this temple, Lord Krishna, one of the devotees was not allowed in the temple. He was not allowed. And can you believe the Lord, there's a window there. The Lord was facing, suppose, this side and the window is behind. The statue turned 180 degrees to give darshan to the devotee who was not allowed, who was from a lower caste. And you can still, when you go to the temple, it is still encased in the same house, same window you can see, and the statue turned, whereas the main entrance is different. So this is how the Lord does. He changes the rule. He picks up the weapon when he promised in Mahabharata, Lord Krishna, that I will not pick up. He picks up the weapon. Can you imagine when he was sitting as a charioteer, when Arjuna was sitting on the top, there was some Bhagavatam going on, and one of the Pandit was narrating. There was one guy who was sitting there crying and crying and crying. So he says, Pandit thought that this guy has really understood the Bhagavatam, essence. So because we are mostly theoretical, we just keep blabbering about things. So he went down. He said, "Oh, okay, which part, which prasang you like the most, and what is the artha meaning of that?" He says, "I don't know what prasang you are talking about. I'm just visualizing. I'm pained to listen and visualize that Lord Krishna, when he was moving the chariot, to turn the chariot left or right, Arjuna used to put his foot on his head, but on the right means he has to turn right, and left means how much hurting it might have been to Krishna, how much blood he might have come out, what bruises he must have encountered. Look at the Lord, what he does. He even goes to this extent, Dasanudas. I think we are so blessed in a sense that we got Bhagwan to guide us, but we are still to be blessed to give him that deservedness to be his devotee. And all this journey is we are trying to be more deserving than desiring to earn his grace. Beautiful sharing, brother. Thanks so much. Yeah. Okay, we'll end this session. Next time, please try to brood into this happiness, how we can get more. What is the thing which is separating us from the lasting happiness? And we'll discuss this more. Let that be a more interactive session. And with that, let's do 3 times Samasta Loka before we end up. Om समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु समस्तलोकाः सुखिनो भवन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। जय बोलिए भगवान श्री सत्य साई बाबा जी की जय। Sai Ram brothers and sisters. Have a great Sunday. Lovely 2 weeks ahead before we catch up again.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Before
much.
we catch up next Sunday, it's again going to be Happy New Year. Everyone.
Yeah, happy New Year. Wishing everyone a very, very happy New Year. Not only the one day and the first day, but all the 365 days. Yeah.
Yes.
Sai Ram.
Sai Ram. Thank you. Sai Ram.